So we're now on to slide 5, we're on to unit 5, and what we're talking about today is we're going to talk about how we can get our students to become filmmakers, but also we can get them to look at whether the content in their work is biased or whether it's accurate. So the next couple of slides are going to introduce this scheme of work and how you can work with it with your students. So for using this, there's a number of opportunities here. So you can use Movie Maker 2.6 or Microsoft Word and OneNote, but you can also use apps on your tablet devices to help you produce this, so you're getting them to use different tools. Video cameras are really helpful because they'll be doing a lot of interviewing, microphones, and like I said before, tablets. And what we aim to get out of this is for students to kind of make a short documentary about what they've found out. So let me introduce what your students will actually be doing. So they'll be investigating a topic about wearing school uniforms. So they'll use online searches and they'll have to consider the reliability of various numbers of sources. So for example, they might find that somebody is saying that school uniform is bad, but have they actually looked where they're getting their information from? Are there facts to back it up, or have they got it from an accurate website? So they're going to collate this evidence using an app called OneNote, and they're also going to write a short film script, and they're going to make the film for their project. So as with any topic that your students are doing, it's good if they have links that cross over to other subjects. In this one, obviously it links into computing, but it can get them to understand networks, including the internet. So some of the material that is offered through the World Wide Web, and this is one of the services, so you can link it in there. Use of search technologies, you can show them how to use search engines effectively and show them how to use the advanced menu to get rid of certain results. You can also use, obviously we need our students to use the technology safely, and we can look at them and say, well, maybe if you change your keywords you might come up with something safer. And obviously being responsible, students need to follow your rules. The other thing, they will need to use a variety of pieces of software to combine all of this together. So that's where we're going with the computing element. Now, linking this in with English, they can actually tell whether something is fact or opinion, and you can also get them to record and present their information from non-fiction materials. They're obviously going to need to present their initial ideas, but also there's the speaking and listening part of English that will help students with their writing eventually, getting them to come up with their ideas, and sometimes it's good if the students can actually vocalize them beforehand. So we've kind of briefly mentioned how it links in with English and how it can help the literacy. But you can also talk about human rights and engage with them in a debate all about whether they have a right to wear what they want, or talk about whose right it is to wear a uniform. You can obviously, with numeracy, look at their data handling skills. So if they interview, say, 300 people who say that they think you should wear a school uniform, and then maybe half of those have said yes, half of them have said no, you can actually plot those and kind of do some graphs with them and improve their skills there. But they might also enjoy using their musical knowledge to record some music for their performance and for their video. So what do we expect our students to get out of this? Well, the students need to be able to develop their research skills, because if students can't search effectively on the internet, whenever it comes to them growing up and kind of go into secondary school, they're going to have some difficult time finding useful information, and that's when teachers end up with copied and pasted work, and it's very difficult to know what your student understands. We obviously expect them to organise and collate the information, because they're going to be doing that with OneNote, but they're also going to get skills in video recording, looking at different camera angles, and also editing these videos to get their final product. Now, in terms of what they need, they'll obviously need OneNote, Movie Maker, or any other videoing software, Microsoft Word, and also you want to go out there and have a look at articles on the internet for dress codes, so you can talk about maybe where people have got in trouble for not wearing the correct dress, or maybe they've been too revealing, and you can go into all sorts of questions with your students. But what I've attached on the next slide, and what you'll see in a minute, is a clip of American News Report on school uniform. So if you can find videos like that and go onto YouTube, you can download those videos and use them as a way of showing your students all sorts of debates that are going on.
Covering all of North Mississippi and West Alabama. This is WCBI News at 6, keeping you informed.
For and against a new uniform policy in the Starkville School District are speaking out today. The school board yesterday voted 3-2 to adopt a district-wide policy, but some students and parents don't seem to like it.
They do not. WCBI's Siobhan Riley gets both sides of this debate.
The Starkville School Board's decision to require students to wear school uniforms next school year isn't settling well with high school sophomore Kelly Oliveri.
We don't want new clothes. We don't want to look the same. We want to have a real change. We want to improve our grades and, have higher graduation rates and levels. And with this uniform policy passing, it's just covering up the problem.
Kelly has started a Facebook page for students who are against the uniforms. More than 130 have already joined the group. The school board district sent out 2 surveys for parents to complete, but Kelly's mother, Kathleen Oliveri, says that wasn't enough to make a decision.
The school board might indicate that parents had plenty of time to respond, but in actuality, based upon what I'm hearing from parents, is they did not feel like they could adequately respond. I would have preferred if the school board had tabled this discussion for parental input.
We had 2 surveys actually months apart. One of them was an online survey. The other had various ways in which they could complete the survey, both pen and pencil and online. We had very little participation in those surveys. The online had the most participation, but on the online survey you could vote as many times as you wanted to. In both surveys, the results were split about half and half.
School board members who are in favor of school uniforms say having a dress code policy puts less stress on kids who are less fortunate and can't afford name brand clothes. It also makes it easier to identify children when they're on field trips.
My son was actually on a field trip, and I happened to be one of the chaperones at that time. Me knowing probably a handful of children's names, to go into a setting where we were not dressed alike, I think the safety of our children is the reason why I voted for this particular issue.
Superintendent Judy Cooey echoes that safety point. She says since the surveys went out to parents, there have already been 2 incidents on campus where students who didn't belong to the school district were on school property. In Starkville, Siobhan Riley, WCBI News.
Thank you, Siobhan. The policy would require students to wear color-specific pants and shirts. Teachers would also be impacted. To get the details, visit our website, WCBI.com. Keep in mind the exact uniform policy is still not yet completed.
So in terms of what you need, you will need digital cameras, microphones and tripods so that you can do some of your recording. But you might really want to think about materials for storyboarding, because students really need to plan this out. You can't just go and say, do a video. They have to do the background research and they have to know what they're researching. And they also have to think about whether the material they're looking at is authentic. So maybe use some storyboards or create some using tables within Word, and this will help you deliver this content a lot more efficiently. So step 1's really more thinking about whether it's opinion and fact, and they are going to learn about how to make a documentary. Now what they're going to do is you're going to teach them about what the difference is between fact and opinion, and you can talk about, well, you can show them some videos, for example, of people saying, well, I think this, I think that, and you can watch some clips about school uniforms for this lesson and just explain what a documentary is, so you can kind of set up what the unit is all about. So what you can get your students to be doing is they can have a class debate about the pros and cons of school uniforms, and you could even get your students to do a role play, and you could set up like 2 desks at the front, like they're the president or like they're the prime minister, and they can be like saying, well, I vote for uniform, if you vote for me I will do this. So you can make it fun for them. It doesn't necessarily have to be boring. Students can interview their friends and family at home, but they could also do like surveys and put the statistics into a tally chart later, so they can build a spreadsheet, and they can then put that graph into their OneNote document, and they can talk about what they found out. So this lesson is about getting them to explore OneNote and get them to set up notebooks. So there are video tutorials that I've attached in this presentation that will explain how OneNote works. So you want to explain to your students, first of all, that they're going to find out more information, and you might want to demonstrate how to do effective searching by doing the advanced searches within all the different search engines available. And you can talk about how you can subtract words from your search. You can talk about changing your keywords, homophones, synonyms, all those types of things that kind of link into English as well will help with the search. So you introduce OneNote and show them how to put in facts and figures that they find online, and you're going to allow students time to set up their notebooks this lesson.
When you first open OneNote, you will find you already have your own notebook. You might want to change its name. Click to add sections and name the tabs. Within each section, create pages to hold your notes. Add as many notebooks, sections and pages as you need. Reorder sections by clicking and dragging. Click anywhere on a page and start typing. Insert files, pictures and web links. Or use the drawing tools. Use SkyDrive to share your notebook with others. Use the OneNote app to organise notes on a tablet. Divide your notebook into sections. Within each section, add pages to hold your notes. Add as many sections and pages as you need. Click or tap anywhere on a page and start typing. A context-sensitive wheel provides formatting options. Add new pages as you need. Use the drawing tools to create your own sketches. Pressing Ctrl and F6 lets you share your notes via email.
So you can use both of those videos as an introduction, and it will kind of help your students understand more why even use OneNote, what is it for. So if you want them to do even more work on this, what you can do is if they've got an email address through live.com, you can kind of get them to share their work through the cloud. And they can share their notebooks, and they can actually update each other's notebooks if they want to work collaboratively. And you can challenge them to make digital notebooks and traditional scrapbooks at home, and then compare them to see the similarities. So you might come back to the lesson and students say, well, that took really long, but then another student might say, well, that was really quick. And you can kind of talk about why we use these digital tools. So step 3 is about them collecting the evidence. You've taught them how to use OneNote, you've shown them how to maybe set up an example notebook. So now what you can do is get the students to use reliable sources. You can remind students that they need to acknowledge their sources, because a lot of students think you can copy and paste work off the internet. Now the great thing about OneNote is that you can copy and paste information, and it does usually put the source underneath it. So then the students can maybe just say, well, what I've used on this is this, this and this. But allow them time to do the research so that they can get some enjoyment about using the tools available. So students can share the information and update their notebooks after this step, but they can also post anything interesting that they've found. And again, they can share it with each other. Now for homework, you can get them to kind of create leaflets and talk about the importance of sharing material and saying where they got it from. They could also create a video interviewing someone about this topic, so they could say, well, where have you ever had work stolen from you? And you could kind of get them to explore using their own devices at home. So what the students can do next is actually record themselves interviewing people, so that you can tell them that they're going to do a documentary, they're going to interview people about the whole topic about uniform, or whatever you choose to do. But divide the class up into groups and make sure that it's a balanced view, because you don't want all the people in one group that are going to kind of say, yes, well, we're all for uniform, and then all the people in another group that's all against it. So you kind of want to keep things fair. So what you should get the students to do beforehand is kind of come up with a list of questions that they could ask people. So you kind of link it in with literacy there. But you can also make sure that you allow time for filming, because if they haven't got any time for filming, you're not going to end up with a product that's worth watching. So there's a number of ways you can do your interviews. You could actually get them to Skype and interview children in another country rather than going around with a video camera. But you could also get them to kind of have a collaborative conversation through OneNote, where they can actually post arguments for and post arguments against. And you could kind of video your screen while this is happening, so you can see all the updates that are going on. But you could also get students to write their own views for homework, and whether they're for or against it, so that they can include that in their video later on. So before the students actually start doing their videoing, they actually want to do a storyboard for their editing. It's good that they have a plan in front of them and they can see that I'm going to start off with the opening credits. I'm going to then include the big question. I'm going to then include somebody's opinion, and you want to get them planning it out, because the plan will save you time, because you won't have to give them as much guidance, because they'll have it in front of them and they'll know what they need to do. Now, you may need to give them some time to show them how to use Movie Maker, so you can do a simple project. You could get them to video something and do the editing just as an intro lesson to show them how to use it. Now, the video on the next slide will show you how to use Movie Maker and maybe more helpful to you.
To import video into Movie Maker 2.6, choose Import into Collections and locate your media files. Select and drag clips onto the timeline. Click play to preview. Zoom to change the level of detail. To split a clip, position the playhead and choose Clip, Split. To delete a clip, right-click and choose Delete. To add a transition, click Video Transitions and drag the transition effect onto the timeline. To record audio, position the playhead and click Start Narration.
On our walk today, we have found 3 different
Click
leaves.
Stop Narration when you have finished. Give your audio a file name and click Save.
So with the video editing, you might want them to get them recording a narration. So you could actually say, well, now that you've put it together, actually explain what's happening before the video comes up. So you can kind of introduce it. But you could also get them to create stop motions. So they could actually record like at start credits using stop motion and make it look a bit more creative. And then for homework, you can ask them to actually compile what their end credits are going to be like and get them to think about all the different places they've got information from, so that they're acknowledging sources at the end of their movie. And it's a good opportunity to include these links, and it shows students that you've followed through with everything you've said from the beginning. So there's lots of different ways that you can talk to your students about the final stage. Now obviously they want to evaluate their work, but you want to allow the students time to review their own work. Now you want to, one of the ways you could approach this is you could invite your parents in and do like an evening of celebration. So you could like provide popcorn and show all the documentaries off, and you could give out awards. And so like maybe there's a student that's really good at being dramatic, so you could like give awards out for the biggest drama queen and make it a bit fun for them. But while they're evaluating it, you might want to provide them with some guidance. So obviously the top ability students will go away and they'll be able to evaluate their work. But for some of the low ability, make sure that you've got like some questions that will help them with their evaluation. And you want to ask them what they might change next time. So how could they improve it? Like 2 stars and a wish, all of that type of thing.
To insert an image in Word, choose Insert Picture and select your image from its saved location. Resize an image by clicking and dragging the sizing handles. If you're using Word 2013, click the icon next to the image to access additional layout options. To add an external sound file to your Word document, position the cursor and click Insert Object. Choose the Create from File tab and browse to the file you wish to import. To embed the audio, make sure the Link to File box is not checked. Double-click the file to open and play the audio in your default media player.
So the previous video was just some tips on Microsoft Word that I thought I would throw in there and I thought it would be useful for you. But while they're evaluating their work, you might want to ask students to suggest other topics that they could cover in the future. And you could make it into a kind of student voice, so you could get them to relate to other things that might be going on in your school and make it more interesting for them. And again, I said you don't need to restrict your students. You might want to try evaluations in different forms. Now obviously with regards to SEN, some students may have difficulties with their writing, so you might want to like nourish their kind of creativity and get them to do videos to say their evaluation rather than doing a handwritten one or a typed document. But for homework, they could write reviews on each other's films based on 2 stars and a wish, or what went well and even better if. And that's kind of how you can finish this unit. So in terms of assessment, all of your students should be able to find information, capture it, record video, and arrange the clips into a sequence. So that's the kind of basic level here. But then as we're kind of progressing, those students will be thinking about the planning behind it, and they'll be able to do a lot more in terms of how they evaluate it, and they'll be able to do a lot more with the tools and the transitions. Now, some of your students will be able to, in their OneNote files, will be able to show a clear differentiation between the kind of bias issues that are out there, and they'll be able to show what a good source is and what a bad source is. So they might actually they might even create a line down their OneNote page and talk about, well, these are good sources because of this, but these are bad sources. And they'll also be crediting all the sources, and they'll be able to try different camera angles. They could even have, if you've got enough for 2 cameras per team or 2 cameras, 2 tablets, sorry, you'd be able to actually have the different angles and kind of flip between the video footage. So that's the kind of thing that you're looking for to kind of notice the difference between the abilities and their assessment. Now, to finish this off again, I just thought I'd show you where it links into the computing curriculum. So again, they need to link into search technologies effectively and use different tools and different software. Now, they need to be able to combine the software and the digital devices to accomplish certain goals. Now, that's all in the computing curriculum, but again, some people are worried about assessment levels. Now, the computing at school have a great progression pathways that you can use as a starting point, and you can like say what level they're at. Now, you can easily put levels to that or numbers, however you want to work it, but if you're worried about showing levels of progress, you can easily do it through the peer assessment. You can do verbal assessment, and you can still do what went well and even better if. You can still help your students progress by giving them basic feedback, so it's important not to forget that. Now, I hope this has been useful and it's given you some sort of insight to the next part of the project, and good luck with computing.